Welcome to the Bearded Synergy Podcast. My name is Greg. Gavin, and I'm joined by my co-host, Joe.
You want to know how I got these scars? My father was a drinker and a fiend. And one night, he goes off crazier than usual. Mommy gets the kitchen knife to defend herself. He doesn't like that. Not one bit. So, me watching, he takes the knife to her, laughing while he does it. He turns to me and he says, "Why so serious?" He comes at me with the knife. "Why so serious?" He sticks the blade in my mouth. Let's put a smile on that face.
Nelson, Joe, what are we talking about today?
Well, Greg, lucky for us, Joker came out.
Yes, Joker came out.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, I've seen it twice now, and then we saw it together last night, Saturday. And what are your? Should we do like the first few minutes, like spoiler free, in case someone wants to check it out, and then like a basic synopsis?
Yeah, I like that idea. We'll talk spoiler free. Listen to this, and then if you haven't seen it, just fucking duck out of this.
Yeah, we'll make it obvious when there's spoilers. We're like, hey, now from here on there'll be spoilers. But
Well, let's just talk about impressions, Greg. Overall, how did the film meet your expectations?
yeah, I'd say so. I mean, I wouldn't say it's a superhero movie. I'd say it's more of a true crime type of deal. But the more I think about it, there's a lot of different layers to it. The more that I think back on it, and we'll talk about that as we go in. But yeah, it's more like a character study. So just imagine that they take this character, the Joker, and plug him into the real world and try to plausibly, make him. They basically try to like explain how he could happen in the real world, I guess, and it's really well done. Joaquin Phoenix is really good. I won't say on here whether I think he's better than Heath Ledger. I think you should determine that for yourself if you haven't seen it. Yeah, it's worth checking out. Though I would say it's definitely not as controversial as people say it is. Regards to starting mass shootings, I'm not sure if they even seen the movie when they were saying that.
They absolutely did not.
Deadpool's a lot more violent than this, and he's having a lot more fun doing it. I mean, Drive, that movie with Ryan Gosling, is a lot more violent than this, and it's actually really similar, where it's kind of a slow burn. And towards the end, Ryan Gosling loses his mind, and it's a lot gorier. So, if you can watch Drive, you kind of got a similar beat, and that wasn't controversial really at all. Otherwise, it's pretty similar to movies like Taxi Driver, another Martin Scorsese movie, and
Well, I mean, a Martin Scorsese film in general, but Todd Phillips was heavily influenced by Scorsese doing this.
mm-hmm.
Taxi Driver's the perfect name drop for this type of film. It's beat for beat. It's psychologically the same type of deal. King Comedy is also you're coloring in the same book. If you want to look at like a Taste of Society mishandling a circumstance that deserves attention, this is that movie. This movie is just screaming out, how are we handling things?
It just seems like another one of those things where people try to blame something for our woes when, in fact, I think this movie actually does the complete opposite of it, where they're actually trying to have the discussion of, the things we don't want to talk about. It's not that controversial. Now, the first time I went in, there were cops there, but they weren't in the theater. And then the second time I went with Joe, there were cops inside the theater in like the usher positions. at certain
I
parts.
felt like the
of
cop was
movie.
looking at me a couple times. He spotted the whitest motherfucker in there. He's like, look at him. He's got a gun in his beard. I know it.
I legitimately thought I was gonna get searched or taken out the first time because I come in and I wear a lot of black, and I'm wearing like black sweatpants, my fucking like black shoes, black coat with a black hood. I'm alone.
You suspicious motherfucker.
Yeah, if there was gonna be someone that would shoot up a place, it would look like me probably.
Yeah, it
So
didn't help that you were alone.
yeah, so I wasn't gonna buy snacks, but I bought snacks to make myself seem like I was like, I'm here to stay for the movie. I'm not gonna. Thought it'd be, but
Look, I'm not going to shoot anybody until I finish my popcorn, okay? Just relax.
yeah, I want to finish my Sprite.
Do you want to talk about the controversy first, moving in?
I would say if you're concerned about seeing the movie based on what you've heard, don't worry about it. It's not controversial at all. There's a ton more violent movies. There were more violent movies this year that came out, and a lot of it is that they say the Joker is painted in a sympathetic light, which in a way he is, but he's the main character. So if they made him like a block of wood and just threw him down the road, and when he hits the end of the road, that's when the movie ends, you wouldn't give a shit. That's the journey. But it's an origin story. There's character beats, there's things he goes through, and essentially his life is awful. He's the Joker. Anyone who knows what the Joker is knows what to expect. He's not a normal dude. He's fucking insane.
And they actually discuss reasons that he is insane. They talk about how somebody's brain can even develop in the capacity that this particular one has. There's a cause and effect with everything. Nobody is... The biggest thing about the controversy that I've seen was them like don't sympathize with a mass killer, which in DC Comics, Joker is one of the most decorated killers in the fucking brand. That's just he's the guy. But nobody gets to a certain point without certain dominoes falling.
Yeah.
And this film talks about each particular domino. Well, it goes back to his childhood, how he even got to that mental break where he's got that uncontrollable laughter.
Yeah.
Where it really gets into his entire childhood forming is because spoilers. His
Well, we should probably wait until we kind of finish the synopsis and then say spoilers. We can discuss all that,
spoilers. I mean, it's not. There's nothing here we haven't seen before. The only reason why this movie is controversial is because people are scared of actually discussing why there's problems in society. That is the only reason. The only reason why there's controversy is because there is reassigning of blame. The movie itself is a fucking brilliant movie. Beat for beat, it is what I want to see from a movie. It rounds itself out. There's uncomfortability. There's moments where you just can't help but to feel what the director and the performance is trying to convey. Like, it takes you for a ride. When you're watching this movie, you're in the movie. If you're a moviegoer and you just want to sit back and just watch some goddamn art, this is your movie. It doesn't feel like a superhero flick.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like a thriller. It just feels like you're watching a cinematic piece of art.
For the case that you're sympathetic for him, I would say you understand kind of why he's upset with things, but the logic he jumps to and the decisions he makes aren't exactly supported because of his mental illness, which is a very heavy topic in the movie, is mental illness and how we treat the mentally ill in terms of like care and support and things like that. I would say probably a more sympathetic villain would be Thanos, where he's not mentally ill, he seems completely sane, and he has a logic for why he's doing what he does. Spoilers for Endgame. Why haven't you seen it yet? Jesus Christ.
That's a good point. Thanos, and people actually
where he's like,
agreed with Thanos on the internet. They were like, word.
he's like, resources are finite, all this stuff is finite, and you're looking around you after you see that movie, and you're like, you know what? He's got a bit of a point, and I would say he's a lot more sympathetic and understanding than the Joker is. And just because you see the Joker have a bad day, in this case, a lot of bad days, time after time after time.
Which is the story of Joker anyways. That's the whole Killing Joke story arc was it only takes one bad day. That's why he fucks with Commissioner Gordon. Was because it only takes one bad day to turn you into this person.
Yeah.
Getting into what we know as his character now, you need to read The Killing Joke. But the whole thing is him trying to convince people, Commissioner Gordon, Batman, there's a reason why people are crazy. It only takes one bad day. Whereas, that's an excellent point. Thanos, he believes in what he's saying. You can obviously side with his reasoning. Not side, but you can understand, hey, something has to be done about the limited resources and people consuming all of it, and nobody else is making a move. So fuck it, I'll make a move. I'm gonna fix it if nobody else will. It's taking you guys this long, or maybe they just don't have the will. And nobody really put controversy on Thanos, and that was billions of dollars went to his cause.
Thanos had a cold, hard logic to it, and it was understandable for why he was doing it.
Killed
and
his fucking daughter.
The Joker, on the other hand, very random, very... You could see in the movie there's a certain path he takes, but he rarely follows it. He's very much just an agent of chaos.
Chaos.
I would say, yeah, definitely watch the movie, and then come back, listen to the rest of this when you're done, so you can join in on the conversation. So,
more importantly, don't not watch the movie and go on the internet and spew out criticisms that you have no idea about.
Yeah.
That's the most ridiculous part about this is people just, I read an article, so this movie's blasphemous. No, it's a movie. If you don't agree with the script, if you don't agree with the direction, if you don't agree with, for some ungodly reason, Joaquin Phoenix's goddamn performance, if you don't agree with these things, it's only because you watched it and you're not a fan of it. Which there's a good amount of people that's not going to be a fan of this film. This is a particular mind state. You have to go in this open-minded and a legitimate fan of movie. From the first act to the third act, it's going to take you on a ride. If you're not willing to, be open-minded about the ride, you have no business watching this. Yeah. But it's really just wonderful.
Keep your mind open to that. It's not going to have, Green Lantern or anything coming around making a surprise save. It's very much Joker. Just, set in a realistic version of Gotham.
There were elements of New York. There were elements of L.A. in the early 90s. Mm-hmm. Chicago at now with how gangs and a kid stabbed another kid in the neck in Franklin Park. The other week, there's elements of this going on, and turning a blind eye to these things, it's not helping the cause by any means. Killing the discussion it doesn't help. This movie is discussing these things. It's very important.
That's very much the purpose of it. So just watch the movie, check us back out. So from here on, spoilers.
Let's get into it. Okay.
So the Joker
was tied to a radiator as a child and beat, and he was adopted.
How much worse can it get?
But that makes sense as a kid, and these are moments he doesn't even remember. He was, as a child, his adopted mother was beat, and he was tied to a radiator, and just mercifully just manhandled by his adopted mother's boyfriend. How is a mind like this, when you don't intervene and interject? And this is the best part of the movie for me. Not the fact that a kid was tied to a radiator. Don't
Oh
get that out of it. But the fact that they talked about you're not sympathizing with a mass murder. You're understanding, or hopefully you're understanding, how this person got to where they are. Every human being, they're formed by what they've experienced. Everything I've ever done is my nickname used to be Angry Joe, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's a reason. Okay, I was angry because of certain things in my past. I was bullied. There was, elements of things in my childhood I don't talk about, but there's a reason why I couldn't control my anger, right? And it took particular instances of people comforting me and understanding who I was or who I was becoming and intervening that helped me become a better person. Arthur Fleck did not have any of this. There's a reason why he became a psychotic lunatic, because instances of abuse kept occurring and nobody stepped in. They cut his funding. He can't get the help he deserves because he's a human being, and we all deserve a chance to get better. And this is very reminiscent of what's happening in society. They're cutting public libraries. They're cutting. There's how much mental help is in insurance. You can go get your shit taken care of, but how many people can afford therapy?
Yeah,
or the proper medication?
Nowadays, if you go in and you need, mental health, they'll just give you some opioids or something, and then that causes a whole nother problem for you.
You become addicted to things, and then without that, you need this and that, and they just keep adding chemicals to the body. And if a chemical wasn't involved in the body in the first place, it doesn't belong in the body because we're organic lives. I feel very strongly about a lot of the conversations revolving around this movie, Greg. I've been very excited for this review because the movie just talks about everything people doesn't want to talk about. And that's why people are so scared of it.
This movie's very much like holding up a mirror to society, the media and, the role that we possibly play in creating these people that do these, terrible things. Whether we support them or say, you go on like Jimmy Kimmel and you see him bullying someone, or like Jay Leno would notoriously bully people. David Letterman.
Which, so that part where he finally gets to Murray's show, right? How wasn't that just poetic during that interview where, Arthur Fleck finally gets invited to the show he loves, right? But it's not in the capacity he expected because it's somebody he idolizes, so he's anticipating a positive thing. But when it turns out that the person he idolizes is ridiculing him.
Yeah, making a joke of him, just quick little jokes, and then brings him on to make fun of him some more.
And Murray has no idea because he's so involved in who he is as a person. He doesn't see that he is making the situation worse. And he's calling him, by all means, what Arthur does, what the Joker does is not good at all. It's very violent and rude. But there's two sides to this coin. And somehow Arthur's only seeing both sides. And the blind society is only seeing the worst side. They're not seeing the bad side. They're just seeing the worst side.
This movie covers...
There's so much to unpack, dude.
Yeah.
How fucking deep
mental
is this
illness, bullying, madness, especially, and how that spreads.
Well, let's digress. Well, how do you feel about Joaquin Phoenix's performance in entirety? Because they've kept a lot of this under wraps. Like we got besides the trailers, I had no idea how far he was actually going to go with this film. How do you think he did?
I thought it was wonderful. I think he should win an Oscar for it, or whatever the big one is. I don't pay attention, but he definitely deserves it. The guy is in 98% of the movie. In most other movies, say another director is making this, the Joker kills those three guys, then it might cut away to the police officers. I guess a similar movie like that would be Boondock Saints, where it shows them killing a guy, then it cuts to Willem Dafoe, shows how he's perceiving what happened, tracking him down. In this, they don't do that. They just show up to Arthur's face, Arthur's house, on his phone, and he's dealing with it. He's in almost every single scene. There's no when he shows up to Bruce Wayne and shoves his fingers in his mouth.
Oh my goodness.
There's no scene of Alfred going up to Thomas Wayne saying what happened. He just walks into Thomas later and he knows what happened. He's like, "You put your fucking fingers in my son's mouth," and pops him in the nose. It's entirely on Arthur. The only scene that isn't on him is the death of Bruce's parents, and it's short. Otherwise, he's either in the room, and they just happen to be cutting to someone else in the room, or he's fucking he controls the screen.
There's a reason why the name of the movie's Joker.
Yeah, a lot of it are extreme close-ups, and you can see his eyes, his eyebrow work. It's very well acted. I would say, acting-wise, pure school of acting, Joaquin Phoenix was the best. I would say as the Joker, though, Batman and the criminal world, Heath Ledger's got to take it. He carried that very energy with him. And you could see that in this portrayal, too. It's just a lot of it's Arthur and the growing into what becomes the Joker. Where in The Dark Knight, he already is the Joker, and you see him in his prime. Not that they're connected in any way. This movie's not going to be connected with anything. And in fact, it's under the, a DC black label. Like, before the movie, there's no DC logo or anything because they don't feel like they want it connected. But
it says a DC film, but it does it in an old vintage way where it's it's just.
They do show it?
It's not the logo. It just says DC film as it rolling out the production names as it's going in.
No wonder I missed it then.
But it's not like a Wonder Woman type deal.
Mm-hmm.
It's very much a vintage approach. It's not undermining it, but it's not saying, "Hey, this is DC." It's just so you know what's coming up, but it's not focused on it.
From what I've heard, DC might be continuing this where they take kind of darker looks at the characters and making it much more mature, and they're going to call that DC Black Label or whatever, where it's more like rated R, explicit type of deal. Whether they continue it, who knows? This movie apparently was pretty cheap to make, and it's probably going to make a lot of money.
It's going to make a shit ton of. It's projected to end with, I think, 92 million or 96 million for.
All right, well, that's good
for opening weekend.
That's kind of where I land on Joaquin Phoenix. I mean, he definitely deserves an award. I mean, the weight he lost for this, and
holy fucking guys,
yeah,
his body was so
very. Was that a Zach Galifianakis bit on Between Two Ferns where he's
who's gonna die who's gonna die of starvation
Matthew
first?
McConaughey or Christian Bale, which one who's gonna die first because they keep drastically changing their body. Christian Bale went through back surgery after American Hustle because he kept bending his back so much.
And Joaquin looked like he had a third shoulder blade just protruding from his body. It was very, and there was in that helped. Like that made the right kind of difference. Where it's, I mean, if you're used to the Joker, he's not built. He doesn't have a strong frame. He's not a good fighter. Mm-hmm. He's just a dirty fighter. He very much looks like the aesthetics of Joker. And when you see him without a shirt on, how starved he is, and a lot of this is built on poverty. The apartment he's living in is terrible. He goes in the elevator, and the elevator shuts down for a second on the way to his room.
Mm-hmm.
And
been there.
Yeah, he's trying to. There's that line in the beginning of the movie where he's going to feed his mom. He tells her, "You need to eat," and she says, "No, you need to eat." And he disregards it completely and just sits down to watch the Murray Show.
Yeah.
He's, he you can tell he cares about somebody, but the furthest thing from his mind is keeping himself healthy. Physically, his biggest thing is mentally. He wants to be taken care of mentally, but he doesn't even care about his physical appearance.
Yeah,
there's that part where he leans back on the couch and his rib cages are protruding out just so forward. It looks like he's a skeleton. I don't know how he was able to at least manage being that thin.
Yeah, he's more like a husk through the whole movie, and it's interesting to see how you never see him eat through the whole movie, but in almost every scene he's smoking.
Yeah,
You know,
a
and
lot
that's kind of a good sign of the stress he's dealing with too. You know,
a lot of smoking in this film.
a lot of it.
I like how you said that Heath Ledger's performance was the Joker in his prime, because it feels like, and it did, this whole performance by Joaquin, it was strongly reminiscent of Heath's performance. It's like he studied it and said, how did Heath's Joker start?
Yeah.
And it almost feels like Joaquin took that approach, which I loved, because Heath Ledger's Joker is my favorite, and it's because it almost feels like that's Heath's third movie as the Joker. He just comes in just right on key. Like you can tell he's a vet. He's used to this lifestyle. This is everyday stuff for him. It's easy. But Arthur Fleck getting into, which this is by far my favorite Joker origin story. There's a panel in DC Comics where it says, Joker says, "I'm not sure of what my origin is, but if it was my choice, it'd be multiple choice. This is my favorite out of A, B, C, or D, because this is, it just works for me. It's definitely Oscar worthy, most definitely Oscar worthy, and for an actor of his caliber to come in at this point of his career, I mean, we're talking about a guy who played Cash. He was fantastic in Spike Jonze's Her. To go from these performances to this, it's like he did acting steroids, and he was already fantastic. It's like if Michael Jordan somehow came back and got 6 more rings in one game. It's like, God damn, dude.
There's a lot of similarities to Taxi Driver.
So many, which I thought getting De Niro in the film was perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I found some similarities also to serial killers like Ed Gein, who Hannibal Lecter, Texas Chainsaw Massacre is modeled after, where
Buffalo Bill.
Ed Gein would, he was abused by his parents, especially his mother, ended up taking care of her. She died, and then he ended up killing other women. And when they found him eventually, he had all these body parts all over his house. I'm not going to get in much more detail than that, but what they think is he was trying to recreate his mom with these body parts. And a lot of it, it's not that dark by any means, but it's...
In the grand scheme of things, I mean, the movie's uncomfortable, but as far as dark, it's not Clockwork Orange. It's It's nothing we haven't seen before. The only reason why it's uncomfortable is because of the times we're in right now and the answers people don't want to make. The questions that have blanks after them. The only reason why it's uncomfortable. As far as the violence and dark, we're in the generation that made Human Centipede.
Yeah, that's much, much worse.
I mean, that had so much notoriety that I think Deadpool talked about it. You know what I'm saying? It was people know about this movie. There's darkness in this fucking world. Kevin Smith made Tusk. You know what I'm saying? As far as those movies go, this ain't bad.
No. My big comparisons with Ed Gein are like, him taking care of his mother. And with Ed Gein, she was a lot more abusive to him, where call him worthless and shit, and then have him come in, sleep with her in his bed. Or, come to bed with me or whatever. And then he'll like, yes, mom, weird shit like that. Barely anything sexual, but it's just, you abuse them 1 minute, then you give them the attention they want. Where in this case, Joker's mother should have been in a mental institution, yet she's having her son take care of her, whether it's money or whatever is another thing. There's, towards the end of the episode, I'm going to talk about some theories I have with why things are the way they are, because there's a lot I have upon thinking about it, but it's, or like where Arthur's masturbating in his mother's bed while she's in the hospital. Or no, it's it's after he kills her. He's in there touching himself in her bed and shit like that. Again, it's very subtle hints.
But there's also, he fantasizes about sleeping with that girl he met in the elevator, which we find, like, the movie portrays he's in a relationship with this woman. And then it turns out it was all just fragments of his imagination as he was trying to cope with what was going on. But as soon as he makes his first murder, the first thing he envisions is just walking in, knocking on this woman's door, kissing her, and the assumption is they have sex and start a relationship.
Yeah, and it's very questionable at best. You're like, what the hell? Well, why would you do that? But then obviously it's a figment of his imagination. When you glance through his notebook as he's going through it, he's got pictures of naked women. He's got pictures of flayed women and shit like that also, which is, you could tell.
He's doing stand-up, and he opens up the book, and just the naked woman just flies out for the audience to see.
Faces
the shot just very subtly notes it. Like, it doesn't dwell on it, but it's just one of those little things where gradually just exposing himself to the world, to what he's going to become. It's very subtle, but it's those things that build up over time.
Where, he's not very open about it, and the medicine probably helps him with that, contain it. That's kind of his place to kind of keep that as his journal, so to speak. Another topic of it is, for a short bit, would be gun control. You could see he's mentally ill, and then he goes to his work, and his friend just gives him a gun. Where you'd say a background check might stop him from doing that, but because he just gets it from a guy.
Yeah, well, that's the whole problem with gun control anyway, and this might
he's got it.
Skew from the topic a little bit, but the whole thing about gun control is you're going to make it harder to get guns from a reputable store that does background checks and things of this nature, but there's always going to be a subculture of society that can get these weapons from the underworld. You're keeping guns away from respectable hands and keeping it in the hands of either criminals or cops, and cutting out the entire part of society that needs protection. And that's another one of those subtle cultural things where that first killing, the thing that gives him the first taste of blood, is because of that undermining aspect of that culture.
Which, that scene where he first kills those three rich dudes, it might be weird to say this, but I actually kind of understood that scene.
Yeah, he's. I don't want to say he's completely justified, but he's not wrong. He's getting beat up on by three dudes who clearly have the upper hand on him. He's sick. He's mentally ill. He can't control his tic because he's got a form of Tourette's in this film. He's suffering through, where he in nervous situations he's uncontrollably laughing to the point where you can see, and Joaquin was so fucking good at this. You can see the struggle on his face. He wants to stop to the point where he's crying. Yeah. He's laughing, but he's crying because he just can't stop it. And they noted a little bit in his comedic performance, which later on, it transpires to be Murray's, Robert De Niro's character's, I guess, his joke on him, where he laughs at him on late night television. But these things, he can't control it. And these three guys, I mean, for all we know, they could have sexually assaulted that girl.
More than definitely, yeah.
So
three dudes, one girl, alone in a subway car.
He diverts attention inadvertently, and he gets beat up on, and in self-defense, he pulls the trigger.
I kind of understood it because, growing up, I had a very aggressive stutter. By no means, it's not similar at all to what Arthur's going through in the movie, but from like preschool to literally my senior year in high school, I avoided talking to people because in order to speak, I would have to stomp my foot, cock my head. There were words that would literally just block, and I couldn't get them out. And I'd be like, Obviously, kids at school are going to make fun of you for that. That's understandable. But then, you get home and, your family makes fun of you for it. And then you got teachers making fun of you for it. So then I'd write notes. They're like, can I go to the bathroom? Like, you can ask me yourself. I'm like can't, you piece of shit. I can't talk. As far as I can remember, that's just how I talked. And I was in speech therapy for a very long time. Different people, different classes, different schools. And eventually, by my senior year, I managed to get out of it, and now I'm fucking on a podcast, and I have little tics like saying or things that kind of get me through things like that. But there were times where I remember people getting in my face and mocking it like and seeing that in the movie where he's obviously struggling with it and they don't understand it and they're mocking his laugh, they're singing songs about him, and they start beating on him. Granted, mine never got that serious, but I remember feeling choked up when that shit happened and wanting to cry and just run off. And
if you were getting just kicked on by 3 grown adults,
that part of the movie really hit home for me. I mean, not that I'd kill anybody, but
well, I mean that's the distinct nature of the character right there. Is I can understand defending yourself if you have a gun. If I'm laying on the ground and 3 people are just stomping the fuck out of me like it's the Attitude Era, I'm gonna defend myself. But the point of separation is Arthur Fleck admits later on when he visits Arkham to find out what was going on with his mom. He admits to the clerk, I did something bad, but I don't feel bad for doing it. It doesn't feel wrong to me, and that's the difference. Is a normal mind would have been like, call 911. Hey, in self-defense, this is what happened.
Or guilt at least.
Yeah, I was jumped. You would. You would have to get through. I ended 3 lives. A rational mind would have been like, I took lives. That's not my job. But him, he did not fucking shake. And there's that apartment scene where, he, stabs dude in the neck, his former coworker, and just while sitting next to the body, coated in blood, which I like that, his face was painted white, so he had the blood splatter on his face. Really, the aesthetic is just showing the crime on his face and how he's okay. And then, the other coworker who happens to be smaller person, what's the politically correct?
Dwarf, little people, midget.
Yeah.
You get the idea.
Yeah. He's half size. And throughout the film, he gets punked for his size. So he's got to handle that. And Arthur doesn't even think about harming this guy. And as he's letting him go, he says, "You were the only one that was nice to me."
Where he locks the door with a chain and he can't reach it. And he
like,
realizes he's got to.
I'm sorry.
Which, by the way, that scene is such a great Joker scene. I think I would say Arthur more or less dies when his mother dies. Because that's the last time you really see him.
Yeah, you can see the
After
turn
that,
happens.
He's in his paint and the doorbell rings, he grabs the scissors. He has an idea that he's willing to kill.
Yeah, he immediately arms himself. He knows. So
I would say Arthur dies then, and then that scene where he kills the dude is really the beginning of the Joker itself. Especially how he's so calm, where he kills the 3 dudes, and his ears are ringing. He's freaking out. He's
almost
running.
frantic.
Yeah, and in this one, it's much more personal. He actually knows the guy.
He stabs him in the throat. He bashes his head against the wall several times, and then peacefully just sits next to the dead body,
making jokes, jump scaring the guy and all that.
That was very Joker-esque.
Yeah, it's a very good Joker scene. So it's
for Joaquin to really handle that transition as well as he did, because that's a very good point. In the beginning of the film, it's very much Arthur, but there is that segue into who the Joker becomes, and he channels what we know of the Joker so perfectly.
I think the difference, I was trying to think what's that barrier between Arthur and the Joker, and I think it's his, willingness to die, where he hints to being suicidal as Arthur, but
and several times
as the Joker, he doesn't give a shit anymore. He's planning out committing suicide on the talk show, so he's fully prepared to die, and you could tell he goes on there with the intention of killing himself. When he's loosey-goosey, he's having fun, he's kissing
he's dancing on his way out. Yeah, he kisses the old doctor lady.
It's it's very much that last day of your life, go crazy. And I think that's such a great personification, and it kind of explains Heath Ledger's Joker too, and all that, where Batman's beating on him, and he just don't give a shit.
You have
Batman's
nothing to
running into
threaten
him
me
with the
with.
motorcycle. He's like, "Get me!" And
He's disappointed when Batman doesn't do it. Like the whole movie, The Dark Knight, it feels like the Joker. He's gonna accomplish his mission, or his second mission, his plan B, is for Batman to kill him. And it just there's an underlining disappointment in Heath's portrayal, to where he just can't get Batman to do it, and he wants it. He absolutely wants it.
it's the complete separation from him as Arthur and just taking on this persona and the willingness to die, where he just becomes unhinged and more or less an agent of chaos, where he don't care what happens. After he's arrested, he's watching the fires and everything. He's happier than shit. He's like, oh wow, this is, people are actually noticing me now and all that, and it's
No, I mean there's
God, such a good movie. And
the ending is exactly what it needed, with like the Joker being surrounded by, and it's very true to the comics. The Joker always, no matter how the means occur, but he always has this following of underlings, with the Joker mask. But in this particular moment, and you could tell that's there's a part of the movie where he says, he feels how he feels finally true to himself. He feels the way he's supposed to be, and that's when he finds himself being the Joker. When he finally gets to that point, he doesn't need the meds because he feels true to himself, which is probably the dangerous part of the movie.
yeah,
But this is, if you're a rational mind, you understand this is the part where he's taking this too far. And if you're agreeing with it as a movie viewer, you're probably a piece of shit. But for the movie of it, this is where all these roads can lead. And then you have the climate of Gotham, which is very true. That's the cool thing about this movie, as far as DC is concerned. Gotham is such a prominent character in what's going on. Your Tim Burton Batman's Gotham has a certain aesthetic. Your Christopher Nolan Batman. Every movie is about either corrupting or finding the truth of Gotham as a whole. And in this movie, you see Gotham in a terrible state. You see it violent. You see it protest. You see all these people just giving up. And it's very much rich versus poor in the aspect where Thomas Wayne, man, he's such a piece of shit in this film.
yeah. I
he's
kind
running
of
for
saw
mayor.
a little political here. I kind of saw glimpses of both Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton in his character when during the debates, Hillary Clinton saying all of Donald Trump's supporters are, what was it, deplorable human beings or something along those lines, saying that she don't want their votes because they're awful people.
Which is a terrible, terrible strategy.
That just pushed everyone. That really just caused a fucking rift between the two sides.
That in the emails.
So there was that, and then where he was like saying that only I could fix it, only I could do it alone, and that's a very Donald Trump thing, where he was just saying, only I can fix it, only I can fix all the problems all by myself.
Only I can make America racist again.
Yeah. So, just a quick political thing. I thought that was an interesting choice of words for them to give him, but
he very much does not care about the underpaid aspect of society. The people who are impoverished and just struggling to make ends meet. You could tell there's a distinction in this culture, in Gotham's culture, and quote unquote what's going on in America.
Well, yeah,
nobody
definitely
gives a fuck.
No.
And finally, like the underpaid, the unemployed, the people who are struggling, they just meet their wits' end, and they find this mascot, this voice of unreason, and follow him because they don't have anybody else to trust. The people who they want to trust, the people who they want to put their faith in, failed them because they didn't care about them. And the only person that would listen to them, even if it wasn't directly intended, but it met their emotional needs at that aspect of time, that's who they flock to.
And and that's kind of the underlying theme of madness in this movie is Joker kills those three guys not because of any political thing. He's getting attacked. He's getting made fun of. He's tired of being bullied.
Which he says in the
He
interview.
has a
He doesn't
gun.
care about politics.
He shoots him. He defends himself. But because they're rich, Arthur at the time has no idea they're rich. He just sees that they're fucking with him. But the people take that and they run with it and they make it their cause, even though that's not the intention. And that's kind of a,
Yeah, it just so happens there were 3 employees of Wayne.
where you see big political things now where someone might do something for one reason, but because it has even the most remote similarity with anything, you completely warp it into whatever you want to believe instead of the actual intention. Madness is a pretty common thing in history too. I mean, fucking French Revolution. Who's that dude in the Jean-Paul Marat? He's this fucking dude. French Revolution. He's writing these propagandist papers stuck in a bathtub. That's not really important, but he has a skin condition. He's writing all this violent shit against the rich because the peasants in France are protesting, and King Louis and all them are like, "We'll let them eat cake." They don't understand that they're starving. They're in that cushion, and this dude's writing all this shit. The rich is the enemy. He's just kill him, kill him, kill him. All this shit. Eventually, people start dying. Heads chopped off, heads chopped off, heads chopped off. This lady goes, assassinates this dude in his bathtub, but he becomes a martyr. And then people just use his death to just expand the madness. Then it just becomes, first it was the rich and all that and the elite, and then it's like, oh, you were talking shit about people getting their heads chopped off, you get their head chopped off, or, you're wearing a feather on the wrong side of the hat, you get chopped off. Madness became fear and paranoia. And it's very much like that, where if you let it spread, that shit can tear you apart. And in this, those people see that it's just 3 rich dudes and like, oh, well, he killed them because they were rich. No, he didn't. But that's what they want to believe. They see that they're poor. There's trash all over the streets.
There's graffiti everywhere, which I love graffiti, but
Yeah.
it's not graph writing in
Yeah.
like
I mean,
artistic means. It's people just tagging up out of distress. It's people just tagging because fuck it.
I mean, mental health is a thing. Funding's being cut for therapy. And when Arthur sneaks in to meet Thomas Wayne, it's that difference where all the people are rioting on the outside and on the inside. Those people aren't even fucking aware of it. They're watching fucking Charlie Chaplin or whatever, on a theater, just having a grand old time. It's quiet. Everyone's happy. They're sitting comfortably. It's that distinction, which, unfortunately, that is a reality nowadays. Most, what is it, like 85% of the wealth goes to like only like fucking so many people, like a handful. The average worker would have to work like 6 months, 40 hours a week to make what the CEO makes in like 1 hour or 1 day, or
It's incredibly disproportionate.
it's an insane level of, and if this movie's controversial or does anything where it's trying to bring attention to anything, I think it's that. But violence isn't the answer to it. There's ways you can go about it if you're smart about it. And I think this movie's trying to steer you away from being violent toward that, because you could see how it plays out in the movie. And it's not ideal. No one wants to see their cities rioting. And I would say movies like The Purge are a lot more controversial and are a lot more heavy-handed with it, where they're
absolutely.
They're having fun with the killing. Even the people killing the killers having fun with it.
That was a movie that announced, if you're not participating in killing your fellow Americans, you're a criminal. Like they were in the movie was showing distaste for citizens that weren't in favor of participating in this, activity, this once a year, and the notion that you could just go and commit any crime for this night, and this like an urge type deal. It was like a vacation from being a good citizen. No, just be a good citizen.
Yeah.
Like that, and they made multiple movies. They made a series on USA, and
Fucking
this is
parodies of it on Rick and Morty even.
this is the movie that gets shit on. Like Joker is
Yeah.
what's wrong with America. You guys aren't seeing things clearly. There's obvious portrayals and cinematic ventures that have gone further than this.
A lot further, yeah.
I can count how many gunshots occurred probably on both hands, maybe a couple toes.
Yeah,
It's not that lot.
Yeah, what is it, like 6 people died? I mean, the 3 dudes, his mom, the big guy, and Murray.
The Joker or the masked clown on the train was accidentally shot by the 2 cops.
Okay, so fucking 2 hands you can count them on your finger.
But
where, one's seen in those movies when they're glorifying it and they're literally in the movie telling you to do it. Now, obviously, those directors will probably say, well, no, this is what happens if you let that happen. And obviously, we don't want that. But this movie is obviously trying to steer you away from it, where those movies...
This movie's trying to understand why people are feeling this way.
That's what's so fucking maddening about the fucking critics and shit saying that about this movie is like, how can you come to that conclusion after seeing this?
Which, Rotten Tomatoes, Rotten Tomatoes is just a collection of critics, but obviously it's become, okay, I want you to write this kind of review, and then I'm going to put it on this website. But after Dave Chappelle's Sticks and Stones and them undercutting, what's going on with the Joker, it's, why are you skewing the perspective? Number one, you have an audience score, which the audience score is just well endowed for both. Mm-hmm. But you don't. That's not your job. Your job isn't to control the narrative. You're not media. You're media in a way, but you're not news media. Just talk about what you liked about it, and don't have an agenda. That's not the point of this. The point is to, like, all emotions aside from the controversy, this movie, front to back, Act 1 to Act 3, from title to curtain call, it has the right kind of build-up that I'd like in a movie, to where you're understanding the character, you're understanding the environment, the culture around what's going on, the things that are talked about. You're seeing character growth, even if it's the wrong way, but you're seeing how somebody progresses to who they become later in the film.
Yeah.
Everything about this movie, as a movie, is fucking beautiful. The movie itself, how it's written, how it's directed, the performances, even the lower key performances, the 2 detectives, we don't see a lot of, but you can see the urgency in their eyes. You can see them being confused by what's going on. That small performance by the clerk inside of Arkham State Hospital, where he goes to read Arthur what was in the file, but then remembers that that's the son, and he was about to read everything that happened to him.
Yeah.
Immediately was discomforted and didn't want to put out the information, because you're just going to make things worse by him knowing everything in this manner. Everything about this film, the small things to the big things, the references, the tying things with Bruce Wayne, I thought was fantastic. You have the Joker making young Bruce, young Batman, smile, handing him a magic cane full of flowers, his encounter with Alfred, which is erratic and aggressive and everything that should have been because of who the character is. The movie itself is masterful. And then when you start talking about the controversy, you're getting away from, like, all these critics are just trying to undermine the movie itself. You're trying to just promote it for what? It's not putting money in your pockets necessarily to make people not want to see this movie. you're gonna get the same money for talking about it honestly than talking about it with an agenda. This whole cancel culture, this whole be afraid of what we don't want to understand. It's not making manners any better. A blind eye will never see the truth, and the truth will always put things in perspective. And perspective will always help in the long run.
It, especially nowadays. I mean, even things that aren't controversial. I mean, you take shows like Last Man Standing, that Tim Allen sitcom. It's got
Which was cut from television.
yeah, it was good. They cut it because he came out as a supporter for Trump on the TV show, and they cut it just because of that. And it's like, dude, come on, you gotta give people perspective. If you don't give them perspective, you get the shithole we're in now, where people only look within their bubble. They only see what they want to see, just like in the movie where they only see that three rich guys and they make it what they want it to be. And some people take advantage of that, where you got people rioting because they're pissed, and all the while you still have people stealing TVs. They're using it as an opportunity to enrich themselves.
I feel like the villain here isn't even the Joker. It's society around Arthur Fleck. It's
I think the villain in it is, us, the people, because it's the people that make the Joker. Yeah, he's insane, yeah, and all that, but he gets the attention. They're telling him it's okay. They're telling him, yeah, we're siding with the killer, and that's what gives him the attention. It's that positive reinforcement.
It's the state cutting off his mental care, him not being able to get his medication that he needs to level himself out, which and the therapist describes, it's not good for me either. They don't care about me. They don't care about the people who need care, and they don't care about the people who give the care.
Yeah.
This whole getting better aspect has been so undermined. And it's true in society. It's obviously true. The dude who drove through Woodfield Mall, the story is that he's schizophrenic, and they cut his care. That's the story. And when if that's true, what you've done is endangered innocent lives because you try to save money by not helping people. But without people, how are you making money in the first place? And the whole people not giving a fuck, the whole violent thing, the whole everybody just let's shoot our way out of this situation. Motherfucker, you guys, the world's gonna end. Like the climate change is real. The Earth is not gonna be here forever. 200 years, none of this will fucking matter. Honestly, none of this will matter in 200 years. Because we're not doing any necessary steps to better it. We're all bickering. We're all yelling at each other. We're all fighting each other. Instead of teaming the fuck up and figuring this out, we're just battling it out to buy time, to waste time. None of it makes sense. And that's what this movie is. Instead of figuring things out, instead of bettering Gotham, we're just doing everything, apparently, to make matters worse. And we just see as the movie goes on, things just get worse and worse and worse.
And kind of going back to the controversy and continuing this a bit, where it seems like those people scared of the movie have no idea what the comic of Batman and, Joker is even about.
The Joker gets so much worse than this in the comics.
And
he's so much worse.
In the movie, there's a contrast of it just right in your face, where you got Arthur is going through all this horrible life, and he says it, there's not one day in my life where I've been happy. And, it because of those choices, he becomes who he is. Where on the contrast side, you have Bruce. He gets dealt a shit hand in his own way with his parents dying, and just take a look at any of the Batman portrayals. It obviously is traumatizing to him. But instead of taking that out on the people, he uses that as reinforcement to better the lives of people, dresses up like a fucking bat, uses money, and fucking punches people in the goddamn face.
Fucking bad.
He dresses like it's right. Fucking goddamn critics! I swear to fucking God, I want to fucking ram my head into a wall. Yeah, the Joker's fucking crazy. Obviously, he's the fucking Joker. Where have you been since the 30s?
I feel like if you did this without Joker's name, which the reason why this is so controversial and
Fucking
people
call
are
it
fired
Arthur.
up. Yeah, because
Have it confused with the PBS Kids show.
so much for reading. Yeah, I mean, if this can only be done with the Joker. I mean, we've done it with Taxi Driver, but that's a generation away.
Yeah.
Like, we're a generation apart from it.
And my God, Taxi Driver is so much worse. You have Martin fucking Scorsese in the movie itself telling him to kill people.
Yeah,
As a fucking, he's in the bunker. It's like, well, why don't you kill? You know, and he's like, fuck yeah, I'll fucking
he's
do
in
it.
Secret Service's ear, just talking to him, planning on assassinating somebody. You know, it could be so much worse. But the reason why this movie can work is because the Joker is such a notoriously psychotic character. Obviously, this guy has issues. Obviously, you can't really side with him because he does things like has his face fall off and sew it back on and kidnap Commissioner Gordon, do things like shoot Commissioner Gordon's daughter, Barbara, in the spine and paralyze her and strip her naked and take pictures of her and have Commissioner Gordon go on a train ride and see all the pictures. And
Yeah.
this is what the Joker does. Not in the movie, by any means. This is what he does in the comics. This title works because Joker is insane and nobody should follow by example. But if you did something where this is a normal citizen, this could be you, which, you know, very well could be somebody, you know, who isn't properly taken care of by the state or by family, which Arthur Fleck in this movie is not taken care of by family or estate at all. But if you just put it out there that the normal person, then I feel like it makes the controversy more real. But it's the Joker. It's DC Comics. It's real, but the entire time I was watching the movie, I just kept thinking about who he will become. It all makes sense knowing who the Joker is in the end. I expect him to do this stuff because it's the Joker. If this was an actual human being doing these things in real life, I would do nothing but shake my head and say, why? But it's the Joker.
Yeah.
It's the fucking Joker. God damn it. He takes blood and he smears it. Like, I like that part.
That is such a great
That was
scene.
such a good Joker scene. Oh my goodness. He's standing on top of the car, the cop car, and he takes the blood from his mouth because he was just T-boned by a bus or a truck trying to rescue him because, god damn it, the Joker's got his own little jokies running around. But he takes the blood from his mouth and he puts a smile on with it. Oh my goodness. As far as the Joker goes, that's poetic.
Going back to Joaquin Phoenix's performance,
It could not be better.
Yeah, I mean,
Just fantastic.
it's so clever. I mean, especially the way they handle his laughter, where it's uncontrollable, and it's almost as if you can replace his laughter with crying in the movie, and it's
And it had a Mark Hamill tone to it.
Yeah,
It really did. Like, what a great tribute to classic animated Joker. It really had that tone going on.
Yeah, and especially going through the movie where he's studying stand-up and he's laughing at all the wrong beats.
Writing down when people are laughing.
Yeah, where...
Like, he's trying to understand it, but he can't quite do it.
Which you can tell, in his fantasy, that's what he wants. Fantasizing about being on Murray's show. He's laughing along with everybody. His humor is so off, and it's one of those things you won't know, where his mother wanted him to be always a happy boy and all that, where I think he used humor to cope with what he was going on as a child. And it obviously got dark. He's choking out, he'll getting hit by buses and shit. But, when he's in that theater spying on Thomas Wayne, and you got like Charlie Chaplin or a Buster or whoever's in it, and it's physical comedy. There's no language, and he's laughing along just like normal with everybody else, which is, a sign that deep down with all those troubles, there is still a human aspect to him where he can connect. It's just at that point it's too late. He's out of medication. He's out of help.
He's about to stalk Thomas Wayne in the bathroom while he's taking a piss.
That humor is his way of trying to connect with people, and yet, watch this movie. It's kind of sad.
It's incredibly sad. I was sad the whole time.
Just watching it fail. Where he realizes his thing's being cut, and he's actually asking about his medication, like he's trying, or how he asks to get his dosage increased because he knows
things aren't right.
What's going on in his mind.
There were a couple parts where I almost teared up, man. Like I was feeling like incredibly sad for this guy because I just kept seeing, and this obviously is the theme for me, people around him fail him and make matters worse. Like, this guy could have been a good human being, but everything just led in the wrong path. And I just kept thinking about it, like, this happens to people. This happens all the time.
Oh yeah.
Kids who go in gangs, they don't have the proper family life. There's no real positive influence that's helping them. The only real influence that they end up knowing is the quote-unquote big brother that leads them into that lifestyle and takes them on that path. The only thing that makes them feel positive is anything that could comfort them, which ends up being that lifestyle at that point. Everything fails them, and it's because of neglect. And throughout the movie, I'm just thinking, man, this could have been different. Arthur could have been different if he was adopted by anybody else. If he was saved in that moment where after he was tied from a radiator and not neglected by his mom, or put in that situation and kept in that situation and grown up in a impoverished area where nobody was given a chance, things could have been different. But it just, when you don't pay attention and you let the weeds grow, your garden's going to fail. God damn it.
That's another kind of subject of it, is that kind of nature versus nurture, where kind of child rearing in a way where she probably shouldn't, Arthur's mother should not have been allowed with that child, especially with her condition. Which
she should have been in Arkham the whole time.
Yeah.
And treated.
Yeah, which is later on, I'll kind of get to my theories about that. But it's, in relation to that gang thing, a lot of people do that because that's sometimes the first time where they get positive reinforcement. As little as it may seem to you, for that person, it may mean the world to them. Where Arthur gets positive reinforcement for killing those people.
Yeah.
He sees it on the news.
The only time he's celebrated, the only time he has an audience that's behind him, which is what he's looking for. As a growing comedian, you're just looking for an audience to support you. The only time he does it is when he makes murder happen and chaos.
Yeah, chaos.
This movie is very introspective and socially aware in a very grotesque way. But that's the magic in it. I mean, that's any good movie will make you question what's going on, no matter what kind of movie it is. Even the Titanic, if the Titanic will make you question things, right?
Yeah.
There was more deaths in the Titanic than there was in this, right? But there was somehow the same kind of cultural difference of low income and rich. It's just how it's skewed with mental health. But there's the magic in this is you're able to look. And you were saying the first night you went, the people behind you.
Yeah, I went during the premiere initially on Thursday, and behind me there was a group of people, and the movie just went completely over their heads.
There's no CGI. There's no superpowers.
In like the scenes where Arthur's having his laughing attacks, he's basically crying. The people behind me were laughing at it, like full on, like it's a comedy. When he's doing his stand up and he can't even get a fucking word in. They're fucking laughing at it. Like, oh, that fucking great. Whoa. You know, I could feel their fucking popcorn coming out of their mouth. Back of my fucking neck is fucking pissing me off. But once he.
But you didn't attack them because you're a rational human being.
Well, yeah, you know, it's just. It was kind of amusing, you know, because to me, obviously, with that stutter I mentioned, you know, where he's having trouble getting words out, I was also sympathetic to that because I understood how that felt. So I got a completely different feeling. I think most people would sympathize like a sad moment. It's a difficult moment for them, and yet they think it's funny. Like they and eventually they ended up leaving early, like right before he would put the. It was right after he killed his mother, and he's like in his underwear and all that shit, and
because that was too damn truthful to what could happen
yeah,
for these people.
they full on just left. They're like, "This is the worst movie I've ever seen," and they walked out. Which I'm like, "Wow, okay." It's kind of amusing to see that in different ways,
I mean,
like how people perceive information like that.
it's weird because obviously there were moments in this movie where I laughed, and you know it's for very different reasons. I found myself laughing very hard in the Manson scene, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. But because it was so outrageous that I couldn't contain it. Not because I wasn't laughing like these guys were obviously laughing because they took the side of the three bullies on the train that would eventually get murdered because they decided to jump and beat on the Joker. But they're like the scene where Arthur walks into the door going into the hospital after that last word to the detectives where he thinks he's smooth and he walks right into the door. There's little moments of that where as like the Arthur laughing at the silent film. There's some of that physical humor. But laughing to jest in somebody's troubling times, that part I never get. I enjoy me a good laugh, but to laugh at somebody's displeasure or discomfort, it's rude.
Yeah,
I'm not a fan of rude. I've been a rude person before, but I've done this thing that's seems pretty polarizing to culture. But I've done this thing called growing the fuck up. And it feels like a lot of these motherfuckers just don't know how to grow the fuck up. Yeah. And that's probably why they walked out. They're afraid to grow the fuck up and understand what society is. And maybe, they could be the problem of society. That Virginia Tech kid who took pictures of himself with guns in the bathroom mirror before he went to go shoot up his college. He thought that shit was funny. That's because he never grew the fuck up.
Is there anything else you want to get into about the movie before I start getting into, like, my theories about it and all that? Well, I'm not sure if you have any theories about it, but...
I mean, as far as theories, I don't have much. I just... See, that... Because I've been excited for this movie since it was announced. I never thought that the Joker could have been overdone or oversaturated by making this film. When I heard about it being an origin period piece, I was pretty happy. And at the time, words like Scorsese and DiCaprio were thrown around in the picture, which now seeing the film, if anybody but Joaquin was playing this character, I probably would have been as happy because the only way this script worked for me, which is fantastic script, was such good writing. But Phoenix's portrayal is what really nailed it for me. But I've been excited for this movie forever. I was one of those people that was wildly disappointed in Jared Leto's performance as the Joker, and that felt like satire to the character, where this brought it back home to what what really is the foundation of the Joker. Like, if it's not, I said it before, there's points in the Joker's past that makes him who he is. And there can't be those points without sympathy. Like like somebody can only become this way from certain events. And this movie nailed it for me. I was never worried about oversaturation. I was only excited, and I've been reading all the articles leading up to it. None with spoilers, because god damn it, I hate spoilers. But only because I was curious on how people thought it was going to go.
Yeah.
And I don't agree with a lot of how it went. You know, I mean, there was, the Aurora, Colorado. I think they made the right move. Not close, in retrospect, I didn't know that the guy who shot the theater for The Dark Knight Rises was dressed up like the Joker.
Yeah, there was some of the victims' families were protesting the theater, saying, "Hey, can you not show this here?
Which
the people we care about was killed by a dude dressed like him, and so."
Yeah, I mean,
If people
without
want to see it, they can go to another town. I'm not sure how close Aurora is to another theater.
I'm sure it's a small town. I put myself in a small town shoes. I've lived in a few small towns. I know the culture of it. Obviously, something like that would shake it to its core. And I was like, okay. At first, I didn't understand it without knowing that information because I was ignorant to it, and then my eyes opened up. I'm like, there's no connection. I was like, Bane was the main guy. Why would you do it? But then when I found out that he was dressed up like the Joker, obviously that's distasteful. Obviously that's just a bad feeling for citizens of that town. But I feel like that's also a small example of what this movie could do. Is if you allow it to help you understand different aspects of how people are feeling, then the movie can service you. If
all about perspective.
It's all about, but that's what it is, man. We know our shoes. I know what shoes I fit in.
Yeah.
I know what shoes I like to wear. They're Jordans, black, primary color, because I get a lot of shit dirty. But I know my shoes. I don't know others. So if
I got my moccasins.
Yeah, you got your moccasins. I wouldn't wear them, so I can't understand them. But if you tell me how comfortable it is, I'd be like, I can understand why you wear them.
They're fucking like slippers you can wear outdoors. I dig it. I don't know.
And
I'm a sweatpants kind of person, so
that's and I dig that you dig it. I used to wear a lot of pajama pants in one of the factories I was working in, and people didn't understand it. But when you wear khakis for 7-8 years, sweatpants or pajama pants are a fucking treat.
Yeah, I know the khaki deal.
Yeah, this movie can only help you understand. But if you don't look at it through the correct lens, obviously you're going to have a skewed perspective. But that's only because of your doing. If you don't allow, and this is any movie, if you don't allow, The Hunger Games, Jesus Christ, The Hunger Games, it's a huge franchise, right? A lot of profit, a lot of big names.
Too. They're making a new book,
and this is a story that's built on just let's pick these people and watch them kill each other in a forest. And not only are we going to do that, we're gonna have them sponsored by companies. We're gonna give them money to do it. This
very
is gonna,
much separating people based on groups.
Yeah, this is going to be done against their will. There's movies with way more controversy, but if you look at it through a correct lens, you understand perspective.
Which I don't think most people would have no trouble understanding the themes of it. I think it's a pretty small percentage of people, like the people I saw. I was in a pretty packed theater, and those three were the only people laughing. So I think that's a pretty good sample size of people that see someone in a wheelchair, strolling down the street, and they laugh at them. If you're that kind of person, this may not be the movie for you.
You need to spend your time growing the fuck up.
Yeah.
I've done it. It's not a bad thing. I was a very immature person. I used to laugh at a lot of people, I got bullied a lot. I got bullied so much that I became a bully. And I felt very bad for all those things that I've ever done. But that's a part of growing up. If you stop yourself from this process, you're only going to remain a piece of shit. I was a big piece of shit, and I like not being a piece of shit. But why are people so afraid of growing the fuck up, Greg?
Yeah, it's facing their own insecurities and their criticisms and realizing that they're not perfect.
I think the biggest thing about
Like I met
being a
people
bully is
where
you're just a pussy. If you're a bully, you're a pussy. At the end of the day, just grow the fuck up and figure it out.
yeah,
There's bigger things.
unfortunately that tends to be a vicious cycle, and you're a bully, you tend to bully yourself. So like say you get home, your dad beats you, you go to school, you beat on someone else, that person takes it out on. It's a cycle of hate, or as How I Met Your Mother puts it, the cycle of screams or circle of screams.
Yeah, and it becomes a triangle of screams or something like that, and he orders the wrong food. I love that scene, by the way. Love that show, by the way.
Yeah, it's a great show.
Oh my goodness.
I would I think you should take a moment to kind of think of all the different ways Joker has been portrayed and how unique that role is, that it could feel like so many different flavors, yet still kind of come from the same, plot of land, so to speak. I mean, you got the original dude. I can't think of his name.
Caesar Romero.
Yeah. The dude that wouldn't shave his mustache, so they had to paint it white.
But he was done in a comical way. He was very much.
Yeah.
He was the joke. Like the whole thing was done in a light fashion, the Adam West era.
Well, I mean, that was back before the comics really got serious.
But
so
it was serious in the beginning, and then there was a reform on what the authority of comics would allow, and they had to sugarcoat things, and the Joker pretty much became just a satire piece, and then when culture changed, the Joker got dark and started killing again. But yeah, the Adam West, Caesar Romero, that was right in the midst of let's take a light approach to things. And then we were introduced to
people like Jack Nicholson, his take is iconic in its own ways. I mean, I'm not that big of, nothing wrong with Jack Nicholson, just, I don't know.
I love the Joker. He's got that line where he says, have you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight? Then he says, I don't know what that means. I just like to say it before I kill somebody or some shit like this.
Yeah.
And
such great lines.
I love Jack.
Mark Hamill obviously very much brought new blood into it, and Heath Ledger, very much being the personification of chaos in itself, but very much in that mystery kind of origin way, where you don't know where he comes from, and he very much plays into that. Where this, where you take a very deep theatrical, it
was a no nonsense, no bullshit type of approach. It was like going from X-Men to Logan. Like they just cut out all the bullshit and just put the cards on the table. How are we going to tell an honest story?
I'm not the biggest fan of it, but there's also Jared Leto.
Fuck that.
Well, I'm just saying,
I know he has to be in the conversation because he portrayed the role. He got paid for it, unfortunately.
Yeah, and like him or hate him, each one made them their own. Yet it's still the same grain. So I think,
and it has nothing to do with Jared Leto, by the way. He's gonna play Morbius in the Sony Spider universe, and I'm in favor of that. I'm excited to see what he does with Morbius. I'm a big fan of Morbius as a character. But as far as how that was done, I don't know how much was in his control when he did the Joker or how much it was written for the Suicide Squad. I don't believe he should have been in that movie at all because he's not a member of the Suicide Squad in the comics. That whole thing it didn't work for me. And mainly it was his performance, but a lot of it was the aesthetics, what surrounded him, why he was in the movie in the first place. It didn't make sense. You could have easily done Harley without him. You obviously you threw Robin in the movie without having him in the movie. You could have done the same with Joker. So just it's nothing to do with Jared Leto as a person, just that particular performance and what they did with costume and dialogue. It didn't work for me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all these different portrayals, I think it's worth saying that Joker's probably one of the more iconic roles, if not.
He is the villain in all of antagonists. He is the. He's the bad guy in any form of media.
I don't know, just, Joker as a fictional character, to create all these different roles, varying on level, obviously. I think that's a wonderful testament to, a comic about a guy that dresses up like a bat and beats the shit out of people. So, which Joker is very, very much doesn't have a lot of comic things to it, but it's movies like this that remind me why I got into that stuff to begin with. It's how interesting the characters can be if you take the time to put it out, which is a character that notoriously doesn't have a backstory. So,
yeah, notoriously.
So,
and there's also there's rumors that there's different Jokers or he's immortal. I think they did put in continuity that there are multiple Jokers.
Yeah, I highly doubt that there'll be a sequel. I mean,
but I think Joaquin went into it knowing that there wouldn't be one.
I think that was the intention why he got into it. Anyways, I don't want to do this again.
I don't think he'd want to do another press tour again.
Starve himself all over again. He's like, not again.
Yeah, I'm over here thinking about the press tours. He's like, he had to go through that body transformation.
Yeah. Well, there are some theories I got from first time I watched it. It was very just layer, just surface layer kind of stuff. Second one was kind of the same. I was trying to keep my eye out for little things, and I spotted some. Then when I got home, I started really thinking about it, and shit kind of hit me like a ton of bricks, where I kind of want to see it maybe a couple more times to kind of re-examine it, because there's some things I want to, kind of like a checklist I want to go over. But there's first theory is that if any of that even happened, where there's that small scene where he's initially visiting a therapist and you see him in that insane asylum. They barely even reference it. He's like, oh yeah, that was weird, or whatever he said, and he's smashing his head against the wall.
Which, I mean, later on he questions, how does one end up here?
Yeah, and there's no other real reference to that even being in there. No one talks about it. But then what probably would be a very good ending after, the spreading his blood on his face, you cut back to the insane asylum, and he's
talking to a new therapist.
Yeah, he's throughout the movie, obviously with his girlfriend, who I don't think has a name, she's not there, and you see him place himself on the Murray thing or in his mother's memory. So he's not a reliable narrator. I mean, he's not narrating it, but, it's his perspective. And kind of like Fight Club style, where it makes you wonder what was real and what wasn't. I mean, maybe he's thinking back on the past and he's just stuck in there, and the joke she wouldn't get at the end one where he's laughing and she's like, you want to tell me the joke? He's like, you wouldn't get it. I mean, initially you're thinking, oh, that little kid's dead, but maybe he's thinking the whole fucking thing. He's just playing fucking games in his mind, or maybe he's just thinking about how he got there, or his life's a comedy and he's thinking back on it. I don't know. It's interesting to think about, because otherwise I don't know how to explain him smashing his head into it and him being confused how people get in there if he's obviously been in there, which it also brings me to his mom, is if her mom, or if Arthur's mom was that deranged, more or less, how the hell did she get out? how is she allowed to keep Arthur? Why wasn't he taken away? Which, I don't know. I mean, there's really no way to answer it, and that's kind of the beauty of the movie is,
They leave you with questions.
yeah, it's
No good movie answers everything.
it's not certain. So I kind of want to go back and rewatch it and see little things here and there that might give that away. Like one thing I want to look for is when the opening scenes where he gets jumped by those kids and they break the sign over him and his boss doesn't believe that the sign's broken, but he doesn't tell him that it's broken. He just says he got jumped. I want to see if I could find that sign in his apartment or something, because I think that would be a good giveaway.
Well, scattered in pieces on the ground. You would have to fix it up and...
Well, like, what if he was just jumped, but the sign wasn't broken? What if that was another part of his imagination, and he actually kept the sign?
Like if he was thinking of an alibi and mixing the two memories?
Yeah, I'm not... So, I don't know. It seems like that it's very interesting to me.
Well, that's the thing about the Joker is you can never trust his narrative.
Yeah,
you never trust his narrative.
Another one I noticed, I didn't really think about it at the time, but there's a big plot point where his mom is telling him that Thomas Wayne is Arthur's father, and he goes and he pursues and tries to find the truth. He checks. He confronts Alfred. He says it's not. He confronts Thomas. He says it's not. He goes to the insane asylum. He gets records saying he's adopted. But for like a split second, you see it where he's putting on his makeup and he has that photo of his mom and he flips it over and it says don't forget your smile or something along those lines. But the initials on it are TW, assuming it's Thomas Wayne. So, was she even lying? Maybe she wasn't crazy. Maybe he imagined. There's layers on top of layers on this shit. And and I wasn't sure if it was TW, and I ended up looking up a screenshot, and it was. But the important thing of it is that he just crumples it up and tosses it because he don't give a shit. Which I think is more important, where it don't matter where he comes from, his humanity's done. No matter where he's from.
He was just about to go on that show and really just change everything.
On top of it being like, okay, was it even real? Then it's like, well, was his mom telling the truth then? And were they just covering it up? Because, the Waynes have money. Who's to say they can't forge something about his mom, to silence them? It's definitely plausible.
Which in the comics does Bruce he funds Arkham, but is it always the Wayne family that funds Arkham?
Well, in the
in
the games it's initially the Arkham family, and I'm not sure how it goes. They didn't explain it during the movie because I'm not sure. It's one of those things that we're not gonna know, which is probably a good thing.
That's the best.
Because it makes it rewatchable, and it's things like that. Because after I saw the second one, I'm like, yeah, there was nothing really new I noticed with it. It was very just, it's all in front of you. Joaquin Phoenix is in 98% of the movie. It's right there. And then I really started thinking about it. I'm like, oh my God, I know nothing. So it's one of those just things that's just, it's worth examining in a lot of different ways, not only for what it has to say. Whether or not you believe this movie about a fictional character about his origin story actually took place, which isn't really important.
Well, it's also a standalone and has no prevalence on any other iteration of Batman.
But this also reinforces that multiple choice origin story in a way, or Heath Ledger, giving people different origins about his scars. It's subtle. It's not in your face, but, once you notice it, it's like, oh my God, how deep. It just makes Joker even deeper.
Well, that we've seen so many different instances of Thomas and Martha Wayne meeting their end, and this is the only one where a riot is happening around them.
Yeah. Like maybe Joker's trying to put himself into their death. You know, maybe the Joker is actually in present day and he's just thinking about himself in the 80s, killing, being responsible for Bruce's parents' death.
But also, I mean, how old do you think Arthur Fleck is in this film? 38, 42?
From what I gathered, he's in his 30s because his mother worked for them 30 years ago. So, and he knew about her adopting the kid. So Arthur's at least 30.
So what? Bruce
we can go with that.
Bruce was in his somewhere in his 20s for Batman Year One. So that means, the Joker would be 50 something when, 50, 60 when he meets Batman.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the Vulture dealing with Spider-Man or something, just some senior citizen,
which I don't
in
know.
the most handy, capable vehicle you can get your hands on.
While doing a kickflip over Batman on, laying down on the road.
Joker's every movie I'll be watching a few more times, not only to kind of probably just uncover more questions with the movie than I already have, but,
I'll be buying it.
Yeah, you gotta love this movie. Yeah. Any final thoughts you got on it?
I spewed a lot of thoughts throughout this whole thing, but
yeah,
I mean, Joker is one of my favorite characters, which could be alarming, but also you gotta.
Yeah.
There's something about.
I thought it was alarming to say that I sympathized with him being bullied and all that. Like, oh no.
Well, here's the thing. It's all about context, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a writer. I write stories. I write things, right? When I'm thinking about my antagonist as I'm developing them, there's certain elements from we're as a creative mind is always a thieving mind. We're always taking things that have influenced us or our work as we go along.
Well, that's everything.
Yeah, and it's just he is the ideal villain, just how he operates. There's certain things that the carelessness, how he approaches you can't have Batman, somebody who is all holier than thou. I'm gonna do the right thing, even though sometimes he doesn't. He's very much a bad father. But as far as his being a vigilante, he doesn't kill. He's got his code. He very much has his conduct that he's going to uphold, and you can only be versed with somebody who's got no remorse and so as a villain, being in a creative mind state, you have to appreciate what that does for a story. And that's what Joker is to me in that realm. He's what a villain could be. Carnage for Spider-Man, the creator said straight up, we wanted Spider-Man to have somebody Joker-esque. We wanted somebody to just be that mountain to climb. How are they going to be able to top what's going on here? So, with Joker, I have no problems with saying he's one of my favorite characters of all time because of what he provides to his story. And that's the whole key to this film. It's a fucking story. He's providing something that's full of questions and ideological concepts that make you evaluate what's going on with what's around you and who's going to save the day, and you have to envision what can happen in the future just to find resolve in this movie. There's no resolve in this movie, but there's the hopeful aspect of what could be down the line. Somebody's going to stop him. Somebody's going to dress up like a bat not on Halloween and kick this guy in the fucking chest. There's that. You can't have your ideal superhero without somebody like the Joker at the end of the day. And as far as real life, we can always look for an adversary, but really it's tendencies within ourselves that are the adversary. You know, it's if you don't see, or if you do see an inability to obtain remorse in certain situations, well, you're doing this wrong. You know, you got to be able to have humanity in moments where it's hard to understand what humanity can be. And without this movie, it's this is movie of the year. It's a fan for me. Fantastic movies have came out. I've been a fan of so many. Obviously, you know.
Yeah, you got stuff like Toy Story 4.
Which I saw last night.
Endgame.
Toy Story 4. Well, I watched it right after the Joker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But even that was dark at moments.
Yeah, you got dark.
But I mean, you have Endgame, you have Spider-Man: Far From Home. I finally saw Mysterio on the big screen, which is one of the biggest anticipating moments for me as a comic book fan.
Yeah, which, my God, how well they pulled that off was amazing.
There's something about this movie that I dig all the questions it provides, and I dig what it can do for social commentary. What I don't dig is how people receive it, but that's also their problem. And if you don't have the ability to question, then you're never going to find the right answer. And that's what this movie speaks to me as. If you don't seek the answer, you're going to die with the question.
Deep stuff.
It's a deep movie, man.
Yeah.
I've very few times can a movie really make me fucking sad. Logan did it. Infinity War did it. Radio did it with Cuba Gooding Jr. Men of Honor, another Robert De Niro flick, did it.
Yeah. Kangaroo Jack.
You know I love Kangaroo Jack.
Yeah.
But this movie it just makes you feel a certain way without being a fucking psycho, hopefully. If you're feeling a psycho kind of way, you need to help. You need some help. And that's not a bad thing. If you need help, don't be afraid to ask for help. That's another thing.
Yeah, definitely.
You will eventually knock on a door that will open. If you're feeling like you're neglected, if you're feeling like you're getting kicked on by three dudes, you know.
Yeah, singing Frank Sinatra to you for some reason.
I love Frank. Literally or figuratively, like if you're dealing with mental illness, if you're dealing with these things, I've dealt with depression. I've had suicidal thoughts many times. As you know, I drank heavy for 9 years. I'm only 27, but I drank heavy for 9 years, and I would daydream about stepping in front of a semi-truck as I was walking down a bridge. These feelings are real, and they're real for a lot of people. So if you're, but I was lucky enough to have people I could go to, even if I fought it, they would step in and grab me by the face and say, "Hey," and that's what you need. If you're feeling this way, find somebody, and if nobody will answer, just keep knocking. Don't give up. Don't go down this road because it's unnecessary. All these destructive means that society keeps turning to is not going to help, and it's just distracting. If we team up and become better as a society and a populace and humanity, if we just be better for each other, all this can change. All these woes could change. It's possible. We just need to wake up and understand we're in this together. When the sun blows up, god damn it, we shit. It don't matter who you were beefing with. It don't matter who you owe money to or who owes you money or who stepped on your foot last week. None of that matters in the grand scheme of things. We just got to get it together. We got to be exactly what is the opposite to the riot scene in the end of this movie is. That is what we could be. In the wrong sense, we can be better. Don't stop seeking it. And that's what this movie is for me.
I guess to close, there's a scene from she should probably check out. It's God damn it. It's from
Kangaroo Jack.
It's from
Jackie Legs.
It's from a True Detective season 1. Matthew McConaughey's character. I mean,
he did all right.
Yeah, he's in the show. He's he's like an altruist or whatever. Like he doesn't believe in God. Just cold hard facts. You find things about his character for why he thinks that way. But um, actually, that big dude that Arthur kills in the movie, he's in True Detective also. Which he,
Nice, you got a
fucking
job.
terrifying. But I was kind of psyched to see him. But at the end, they're a ton of shit that Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson go through, and again, fucking Matthew McConaughey is this darkness will come for us all. There's nothing after life, just depressing motherfucker, and he's like near death essentially, and they're outside, and he's in this wheelchair, and it's dark out, and they're smoking cigarettes, and
Didn't you tell me one time at dinner, once maybe, about you used to make up stories about the stars?
Yeah, that was in Alaska, under the night skies.
Yeah, you used to lay there and look up. Yeah, at the stars.
Yeah, you remember I never watched the TV till I was 17, so there wasn't much to fucking do out there besides walk around, explore.
And look up at the stars and make up stories. Like what?
I tell you, Marty, I've been up in that room looking out those windows every night here, just thinking. It's just one story. The oldest.
What's that?
Light versus dark.
Well, I know we ain't in Alaska, but it appears to me that the dark has a lot more territory.
Yeah. You're right about that.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, hey,
Yeah, what?
would you point me in the direction of that car, man? I spent enough of my fucking life in hospitals.
Jesus. No. You know what? I'd protest. But it occurs to me that you're unkillable. You want to go back, get clothes or anything?
Anything I left back there, I don't need. You're looking at it wrong. The sky thing.
How's that?
Well, once there was only dark. When you ask me, any lights winning.
in the movie itself, as twisted as at this point Joker is, when he's yelling at Murray, he fucking says it. He's like, people aren't kind anymore. What happened to some warmth? What happened to a hug? There's no harm in holding out a hand and helping someone up that might be, treading water a bit.
And by all means, if you're feeling like you're going down that road, contact us. Well, email us. We'll reach out. It is what it is. We are honestly in it together.
Yeah.
And as much as I'd love to see like this kind of movie, by all means, I don't like to see it in real life. That's not what this is for.
Mm-hmm. And I've been there too, suicidal thoughts and all that. So it's, or times seem the worst, that's usually where the unexpected happens for you.
Man, I used to drink hoping I get alcohol poisoning. That was the goal. I drink. It was one of those things where it was like, I figured if it looked like that, nobody would have felt guilty, which is the wrong thought process. I was like, it'll be perfect. I'll drink myself into death, and when somebody finds me, be like, oh, he just drank too much again. and then I'm off the hook. There's no guilt, but that's not true. And that's one of the things about, just people reaching out and, you figure things out and you get better. It gets better. You grow a beard. And
Grab a cheeseburger, throw it at the birds, laugh a little, life isn't, life gets hard, but you can always pick yourself up one way or another. If you need help picking yourself up, there's no shame in that as long as you're up and you're moving. Always keep walking. Don't stand still. And I'm not as poetic as I thought I was. Beep, bop, boop.
See, even robots can have humanity.
Yeah.
So can you.
Yeah. Well, all right.
By the way, before we sign off, I want to bring this up. Completely off topic. Call of Duty Mobile is out.
There's a Call of Duty Mobile out?
There's Call of Duty on your phone.
Ugh.
And goddamn, is it good.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, you thought I was going to go another way, didn't you? It's good as hell, man. I'm so surprised. The controls are kind of like if you ever played PUBG or, on your phone or something like this, but they brought back OG maps like Hijack, Nuketown, Standoff, Raid. It's you customize your loadouts as you go further and level up. It's just like your normal Call of Duty game. You got Battle Royale mode. You got your team deathmatch, domination. I'm pretty sure Zombies is coming soon because there's a panel that said coming soon, and there's like a decrepit hand reaching up.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Oh, Greg, you got to check it out. So good.
Oh, I know you sent me that Birds of Prey trailer. What'd you think of that? The new Harley Quinn movie.
You know what a harlequin is? A harlequin's role is to serve. It's nothing without a master. And no one gives two shits who we are beyond that.
I'm excited for it. I'm in favor of it. I think Margot Robbie does a good job as Harley. I feel like as live action goes, wildly acceptable of what she's done in Suicide Squad, and I'm excited to see where she goes with it. But that being said, the movie is supposed to be about her separating from Mr. J.
Mr. J.
But also the antagonist of the film also seems to like reapply that theme, and I don't think they could have. I think they could have done something different with that. I'm still gonna see the movie,
Yeah,
but that worries me. You can't. For me, that's kind of overkill on that. If you're having her separate and try to be who she is, and then have her face another person, it's like doing the same storyline.
She's dealing with Black Mask and Victor Zsasz, I believe. So
Yeah, but it's the whole I own you, Harley. No, I just got away from Mr. J. You don't own me.
yeah,
Nobody
smack you
owns
with a
me.
hammer.
Yeah, you could just. The aesthetics look really good. She's got her hyena.
Yeah, fucking eating
Yeah,
Twizzlers with it.
I'm excited for it.
Yeah, it looks good. If you got questions, you could find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. If you're on Twitter, use the hashtag AskBS. Look for them, answer your questions. You can also find us on YouTube, anywhere you find your podcasts, all that glorious shit. Until next time.
Why so serious?